Whom the Gods Fear, by J. Wdowski. Chapter 18. The captains of the 3 scout frigates had taken one of their stealth shuttles to the Marco Polo. Once they landed on the hangar deck and it was repressurized, Commander Granite and Captain Mahan entered with 2 Space Marines. They all stood at attention and saluted the higher-ranking officers, who were oddly not wearing their combat light blues, but were in their best-dressed navy whites. The officers briskly returned their salutes. Commander Granite gestured with his arm to the hangar deck's exit. "Captains, this way. Mr. Yeager is waiting in the conference room." As they made their way through the tight corridors of the Marco Polo, the 2 younger captains walked behind the elder senior captain, who was a lean man of Indian descent in his early 60s. "Commander, what is this Mr. Yeager like?" the female captain in her late 40s inquired. "Are all the things they say about him in the media true?" "Ma'am, I would not give much credence to the media reports on Mr. Yeager. I have found him a very capable and natural leader." Granite responded, "I would not underestimate him." "Is that why you did not take command when ordered to?" the Euro-Asian captain in his early 50s asked. "Sir, it is his ship. The crew is his. I have also learned to trust his judgment." Granite defended his decision. "My compliments, Mr. Yeager, to you and your crew for a very, very professional intelligence briefing. You have accomplished so much for a mere civilian vessel, especially under these very, very trying conditions," praised the subcontinent Indian commander with a strong accent. He sat across from Glenn between his fellow ship captains. "I also appreciate your insightful assessment of the situation. So, I am happy to let you know that with the arrival of my task force, we are more than capable of taking up your mission of surveillance. Your ship has been reinstated as a non-combative vessel, and you are now free to return to Earth and away from this theater of operations. Captain Dhawan, I am glad you understand clearly the reality of the situation. You can help end this conflict before it even starts." Glenn said with a sense of relief, "I am sorry, Mr. Yeager, but those types of decisions are way above my position of authority. My orders are to only continue your fine work in gathering as much military intelligence on the enemy as possible." Dumbfounded Glenn repeated himself, "You do understand that the destruction of the Venture was the act of a single Shingnese fighter pilot. It was not authorized by the Shingnese Tri-Council." "I understand perfectly, Mr. Yeager, but I am under very, very strict orders to only gather military intelligence. I am not authorized to ascertain policy in this theater of operation. I am merely an officer in the Stellar Navy. I am not a policy maker. Rebecca, can you talk to him? You from the outset advocated that the Shingnese had no intentions of hostilities towards the Earth." Glenn pleaded for Rebecca, stern to speak up. "I may have thought that before, but my opinion of the situation has evolved. I must agree with the common-sense popular opinion that the Shingnese have been harboring aggressive intentions against Earth." "You're kidding, yes?" Glenn replied. "I am admitting to you that you were right. The Shingnese are not seeking a conflict with us. Some of my best friends were aboard the Venture. It is clear to me now that the Shingnese are beyond evolving and are merely a group of backward, racist, warmongering cowboys," Rebecca coldly said. Glenn realized that Rebecca was not going to assist him in swaying Dhawan. She would slavishly follow whatever the popular sentiments of the times were. He looked Dhawan squarely in the eyes. "Captain Dhawan, if you will not assist me in preventing this coming conflict, I will have no other choice but to wait for the arrival of the main battle fleet and speak to your admiral. Mr. Yeager, you have been very, very lucky that you have not yet been discovered by the Shingnese. The Polo is a remarkable ship, but does not possess our stealth technology. You will in time be discovered. I cannot allow that. It may jeopardize my mission. As you stated, Captain Dhawan, we are no longer under the command of the Interstellar Navy. We are free to go or stay where we please. You must leave the Shing star system." Dhawan insisted, "I do not want to use force against you. Captain, I do believe you took the same oath that I and Captain Mahan have." Granite defended Glenn. "You committed to uphold the Constitution and the guaranteed rights of all our citizens. Mr. Yeager is within his constitutional right of freedom of travel to go or stay as he pleases." Frustrated Dhawan could only reply, "Fine, you stay at your own peril, Mr. Yeager. My ships will split up and take up advantageous positions in this system to conduct our surveillance of the Shingnese military. We will not expose ourselves if you are attacked by the Shingnese. I am under strict orders not to engage the enemy until the arrival of the fleet. Dhawan stood from a conference table. His fellow ship's captains followed his lead. It is clear that this debriefing is concluded. Rebecca Stern also stood from the table. Captain Dhawan, I and my assistants will return with you back to the New York. I no longer wish to remain on this ship under Mr. Yeager's command. I am very, very sorry, Ambassador Stern, but we are a military ship at war on a sensitive mission. I am not authorized to take on board any non-essential personnel. Non-essential. Do you know who I am, you overgrown mall security guard? Rebecca screeched at the uniformed captain, who instinctively covered his ears. Once she stopped her screeching, the task force commander responded. I am very, very aware of whom you are, Ambassador Stern, but my hands are tied. You, along with everyone aboard this ship, should return to Earth without hesitation. He turned his back on Rebecca and proceeded to the conference room exit. How dare you turn your back to me, you bellboy uniformed peon? Rebecca screeched again. Dhawan stopped in his tracks and turned around briefly, giving Rebecca Stern a disdainful glance before addressing Glenn Yeager. My sympathies, Mr. Yeager. Stern's assistants held her back just in time to prevent her from clawing out the captain's eyes. She cursed him and threatened him at unhumanly high pitch. Dhawan, visually flustered by Rebecca Stern, attempted to maintain his dignity and professionalism while making a hasty retreat back to his shuttle. As Rebecca's assistants attempted to calm her down, she turned to scold Glenn. I order you to return us back to Earth. We are not going back to Earth until I speak to the Admiral of the First Fleet. I am not going to let this war happen. Who the hell do you think you are? She bellowed at Glenn. The declaration of war was passed by a supermajority of both forums of the EGG. It is treason to interfere with military operations. Glenn had enough of Rebecca Stern. Captain Mahan, have one of your Marines escort Ms. Stern out of here. Again, she went into one of her uncontrolled cursing damnations of Glenn. Mahan signaled one of his Marines to remove the ambassador. How dare you use force to remove me? She screamed as the Marine dragged her out. You are always speaking of constitutional rights. What about my constitutional rights? Mr. Landrew closed and secured the hatch as soon as she was across the portal threshold. We are lucky sound cannot travel through the vacuum of space, or the Shingese would hear her all the way back on their home world. Granite said, lightening up the room just a bit. Glenn was not at all in a light mood. He was extremely frustrated with Captain Dhawan. I cannot understand how a Navy captain can be so bureaucratic. I am sorry to say he is typical of most officers in our Navy. He has spent his entire career as a peacetime officer. He only wants to get through his tour of duty without any mishaps so he can retire and collect his fat pension. Why even serve in the interstellar Navy? Basic social welfare already provides a comfortable life, asked Landrew. It does, but not as comfortable a lifestyle on a retired captain's pension, replied Granite. At Dhawan's age, he has only a couple more years until retirement. He is not going to risk that pension by making waves with those above him. Ever since you declined command of the Polo, you have been making waves with your superiors, pointed out Glenn to Granite. I did not join the Stellar Navy to just serve my time and collect a pension, responded Granite. Nor I the Marines, echoed Captain Mahan.